For over 1900 years, the fate of Rome's Ninth Legion has remained one of history's most profound and enduring military mysteries. A battle-hardened elite force of over 5,000 highly trained men thundered into the fog-drenched highlands of ancient Scotland, and then they simply vanished. There are no mass graves, there are no battlefield casualty reports, there are no records of them surrendering, and absolutely no evidence of survivors. But what makes the disappearance of the Ninth Legion so terrifying is not just that they went missing, it is the chilling realization that the Roman Empire, a civilization pathologically obsessed with record-keeping, glory, and military lineage, went to extraordinary deliberate lengths to pretend that the Ninth Legion had never existed at all. This is not just a story of a lost army. It is the story of a massive imperial cover-up. To understand the magnitude of this disappearance, you have to understand who these men were. Forged in the brutal fires of civil war, the Ninth Spanish Legion was part myth and part war machine. They had marched under the command of Julius Caesar himself during the grueling Gallic Wars. These were no green recruits or reluctant conscripts. They were elite shock troops renowned for their iron discipline and unmatched physical endurance. For nearly 2 centuries, the Ninth Legion was the sharp, violent edge of Roman expansion. They crushed fierce rebellions in Spain. They held the terrifying Rhine frontier against Germanic incursions. They stormed through Britain under Emperor Claudius, and they played a critical role in quelling Queen Boudicca's massive uprising. Time and time again, the Ninth had been sent wherever the empire needed swift, decisive action. By the early 2nd century AD, they were stationed at the cold, wind-swept fortress of Eboracum, modern-day York in northern England. Eboracum was Rome's ultimate military staging ground in Britannia, a fortress of stone, granaries, and temples projecting absolute imperial might. But just north of those walls lay Caledonia, modern-day Scotland. This was a wild, lawless territory filled with dense forests, jagged highlands, and treacherous bogs. It was home to fiercely independent tribal confederations that completely refused to kneel to Rome. The terrain provided perfect cover for ambush and guerrilla warfare. Roman patrols that ventured too deep into the Caledonian mist frequently did not return. In 108 AD, we have absolute carved-in-stone proof that the Ninth Legion was alive, active, and rebuilding the fortress at Eboracum. An inscribed stone slab bearing the legion's official name and titles was discovered in the ruins of York. It reads like a mundane, standard military dedication, yet that simple stone slab would become a chilling historical timestamp. It is the final definitive footprint of the Ninth Legion before the silence began. Suddenly, the highly meticulous records of the Roman military bureaucracy went completely blank. Lists of stationed legions across the empire, which were typically kept with obsessive precision, simply omitted Legio IX Hispana. The legion's name was absent from new stone inscriptions. Imperial coins and military annals made absolutely no reference to them. It was as if a giant eraser had been taken to the very fabric of the empire. For over a century, modern historians embraced a terrifying narrative to explain the silence. The legend claimed that sometime around 117 AD, the Ninth Legion marched into the Scottish mists to crush a rebellion, and they were completely annihilated by painted Highland warriors. The psychological shock of losing an entire elite legion to a disorganized confederation of tribesmen would have been a political disaster for the newly crowned Emperor Hadrian. Admitting that native tribes had completely wiped out his best troops would have shattered the illusion of Roman invincibility. So, according to the legend, Hadrian covered it up. He erased the legion from history. And instead of sending new armies north to avenge the fallen, he traveled to Britain and gave a completely different order. He ordered his men to stop marching, to dig trenches, and to build a massive 73-mile barricade, Hadrian's Wall. Viewed through the lens of the vanished ninth, the wall was not a symbol of power. It was the physical manifestation of Roman fear. Hadrian understood exactly what monsters had swallowed his elite legion, and the wall was his way of ensuring they could never march south. There is just one massive problem with this legend. Modern science and archaeology have finally proven that it is almost entirely wrong. The mystery of the lost Ninth Legion has finally been solved, and the undeniable truth was not buried in the freezing bogs of Scotland. It was hiding hundreds of miles away on the mainland of Europe. The breakthrough came when researchers began digging at an ancient Roman fortress known as Noviomagus, located in modern-day Nijmegen in the Netherlands. Deep in the soil, they uncovered a series of ancient baked clay roof tiles. When archaeologists brushed away the dirt, they stared at the official military stamps pressed firmly into the clay. The stamps read Leg 9 HISP, the 9th Spanish Legion. But it wasn't just the name that shattered the Scottish legend, it was the date. Using precise archaeological dating methods, researchers confirmed that these tiles were manufactured between 120 and 130 AD. This was mathematically impossible under the old theory. The 9th Legion could not have been manufacturing military roof tiles in the Netherlands a decade after they were supposedly annihilated in Scotland. Dead men do not build fortresses. The evidence didn't stop there. Archaeologists in Nijmegen also uncovered a bronze pendant specifically belonging to the 9th Legion, further cementing their physical presence on the European continent long after their supposed disappearance. But the final fatal blow to the Scottish massacre myth came from the Roman archives themselves. If an entire legion is wiped out in battle, its commanding officers die with it or return in absolute disgrace. But historians analyzing Roman career records found the name of Lucius Aemilius Carus. Carus was a highly documented senior-ranking officer of the 9th Legion. Yet historical records prove that in the 140s AD, decades after the 9th supposedly vanished in Britain, Lucius Aemilius Carus was alive, well, and actively serving as the Roman governor of Arabia. The commanders of the 9th Legion hadn't been slaughtered by Highlanders, they had been promoted. When you combine the stamped clay tiles in the Netherlands with the undeniable career records of its surviving officers, the true fate of the 9th Legion finally steps out of the shadows. They didn't vanish into the mist, they were transferred.
Emperor Hadrian didn't build his famous wall out of terrified panic over a slaughtered army. He built it because Rome was restructuring its global military strategy. Hadrian was abandoning the reckless expansion of the past and transitioning to heavily fortified defensive borders. To secure the continent, the 9th Legion was quietly rotated out of Britain and reassigned to the vulnerable Rhine frontier in the Netherlands. But this doesn't explain the ultimate mystery. If they survived Britain and moved to the Netherlands, why did their name completely disappear from all Roman records just a few decades later? What actually killed the 9th Legion? The answer lies in the East. During the 2nd century AD, the empire faced two catastrophic military crises in the eastern provinces. In 132 AD, the brutal and incredibly bloody Bar Kokhba revolt erupted, and in 161 AD, a massive war broke out against the formidable Parthian Empire. These eastern conflicts were not minor skirmishes, they were devastating and grueling campaigns. Roman historical records from these wars speak of unprecedented, staggering casualties. The Roman historian Fronto noted that the losses during these eastern conflicts were so horrific that Emperor Hadrian, when writing to the Senate, deliberately omitted the standard opening phrase, "If you and your children are in health, it is well. I and the legions are in health." Because the legions were not in health, they were being systematically dismantled.
Modern military historians now confidently believe that the Ninth Legion was pulled from their station in the Netherlands and deployed to the Middle East to fight in one of these two devastating wars. There, under the scorching eastern sun, thousands of miles away from the Scottish Highlands, the Ninth Legion finally met its match. They were caught in a catastrophic, overwhelming defeat. The Legion suffered such extreme, unrecoverable casualties that the unit simply ceased to exist as a functional military force. When a Roman legion was utterly destroyed, the empire did not celebrate its failure. If the survivors were too few to rebuild the unit, the legion's number and name were quietly, permanently retired. They were not cursed with a damnatio memoriae. They were simply filed away into bureaucratic oblivion, erased to protect the fragile illusion of Rome's unstoppable power. For centuries, we loved the myth of the Lost Legion. We romanticized the idea of a ghost army swallowed by the wild, unconquerable North. But the truth uncovered by modern archaeology is far more deeply human. The legendary Ninth Legion wasn't defeated by magic, mist, or monsters. They were simply a group of professional soldiers shuffling from one brutal frontier to another until the relentless grinding machinery of the Roman Empire finally sent them into a war they couldn't win. Their bones aren't resting under the Scottish peat bogs. They are scattered beneath the sands of the Middle East, victims of an empire that demanded their ultimate sacrifice and then quietly erased their name.